Welcome to the Everything's Coming Up Marketing Podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of marketing and mental health. On this show, oversharing is caring. I'm your host, Amber Rhodes. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey y'all, thanks for joining the Everything's Coming Up Marketing Podcast. Today I'm here with Mallory Mullan, who deals with stress by
listening to true crime podcasts and playing with my puppy.
Those are two very good options. So I have to ask your true crime podcast preference. What are you listening to right now?
Oh, Crime Junkie is a top one. But if you want something that's also mixed with like laughter and paranormal to kind of lower the stress levels of true crime, then Wine and Crime or And That's Why We Drink.
I have heard of And That's Why We Drink. I haven't listened to it. So my experience with true crime podcasts has either been the really intense, like investigative ones by ABC News or something, or My Favorite Murder, which is like maybe the OG. I don't really know.
That was my gateway podcast.
That's what I was trying to think of. Yep, gateway podcast.
Yep.
What is it about true crime that relaxes you?
I know it's weird. I don't know. I guess like in a morbid way, my life is never that bad. But also I just find it fascinating of like why people's minds work the way that they do to commit the crimes, why people's minds work the way they do to solve the crimes, like what makes a case go unsolved, all those things. But then I also have a theory that maybe this is too dark for the podcast, but because women are usually the victims, we listen to it more because most women are crime junkies or, murderinos, whatever you want to call them. It's because we like to know what's out there that we could prepare for.
I've heard this theory as well, and I agree with it. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially, I'm a very anxious person, so I kind of like to know all the scenarios that are possible. And listening to these true crime podcasts, you're like, I didn't even know that was an option. I didn't even know that I could die that way.
Exactly.
And yeah, it definitely opens your eyes to some of the worst things in humanity, and then you can mentally prepare yourself.
Exactly. It must be because I'm anxious too. I just like to think of all the other ways that I should worry.
Yep. There's actually so many ways.
Oh God, that's terrifying.
So let's talk about your puppy instead. How old's your puppy?
He's 10 months and he literally is going through like his teenage phase. So even though he was kind of trained, now he's ignoring everything unless I have hot dogs.
Hot dogs are his treat of choice.
His drug of choice, yes.
That's so interesting. There used to be a program in a city I lived in where you could take a dog on a date. So basically you would check out a dog for a day and then go for like some walks and then go get a puppuccino from Starbucks, and they would always give us cut up hot dogs as a treat to give to the dogs. It's kind of gross to feel like to reach in a bag of cut up hot dogs, but they loved them.
Yeah. No, I have like a tray that I've got pre-cut hot dogs. So I don't have to like reach in a bag. That sounds like one of those like close your eyes and try and guess what it is games. I'm not here for that. That sounds fun, dating a dog. Well, okay, that sounds horrible, but like going and doing the date experience with a dog, I guess.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was nice to get them out and kind of see their personalities. And I have my own dog as well. So when I got home, he would just sniff and be excited. There's another dog scent. Yeah.
What kind of dog?
Oh, I have a beagle. He's like a beagle mix, all brown, no, not a tricolor, so he doesn't look like a classic beagle. And he's basically a lump that lives on my couch.
Beagles are so cute. I love their like long ears.
Mm-hmm. They're like velvet.
Ears.
I think that if I could, Honey, I Shrunk My Kids. Are you of that generation? Yeah. If I could be shrunk like one of those kids, I would want to be able to sleep under my beagle's ear. And that's like the full, honest, weird thing that I told you just now. Like I would love to be able to sleep right under his ear.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I guess it would be really soft and super warm, and nothing else is going to get you in there, so you're totally safe.
Mm-hmm. It would just smell weird.
Yeah, just wear like a mask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or put some kind of nasal spray in your nose.
Love is nose blind.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this your first puppy?
One that I've owned, yeah. My family had schnauzers growing up, but I haven't had to train one myself, and it's a lot of work.
Does it feel fulfilling, or are you just kinda like, I can't wait until he's over this?"
Depends on the day, honestly. 'Cause some days he's worse than others. He likes to bark a lot, so it depends on, like, how crazy he goes, but I think it's nice, like, getting to see, like, his little reactions to things and, like, what makes him go so crazy and then try and control that a little bit so he's still happy, but not shrieking about it.
Yeah. And so you dropped this tidbit of information, which I did not know about you, but you live in Ireland, which seems like a very good place to have a schnauzer. I don't know why. It just seems like they would fit in really well.
Yeah, you're not alone. They're literally I haven't Googled any stats, but I'm pretty sure they're the number 1 dog here, like, everyone has a Schnauzer. It's very weird. It's like the dog of Ireland, even though they actually have dogs, like, only from Ireland, like the, Irish Wolfhound, but there's
Mhm.
way more Schnauzers, they're everywhere.
Irish wolfhounds, are massive, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, they
they're like
actually were used to keep wolves away.
yeah, like, they're really tall. I don't know how big they can get, but I've seen some and I think they were supposed to be puppies, and they were, like, nearly up to my shoulders standing on all fours. So, like, standing on 2 legs, they'd probably be taller than me, and I'm 5'4".
Mhm.
I like moose dogs.
It makes sense that the Schnauzer would be the Irish dog rather than the Irish Wolfhound. That
Yeah,
doesn't fit anywhere.
no. They're so cute, though. You should come to Ireland, then you can see all the Schnauzers.
It's honestly on my list to go to Ireland, so, I have a dream. I just got married, so I have a dream honeymoon of going to
Congratulations.
Thank you. Going to Scotland, like,
Yeah,
really remote Scotland, and Ireland as well.
you should. You can get the ferry o well, it's kinda pricey right now, but you can get the ferry over from, somewhere near Glasgow and come over to Belfast and then drive down.
I would love to. I'm scared of driving, on the other side of the road.
I don't blame you. The roads are actually really creepy.
Yeah, do you drive?
Yeah. But I only just got my UK license, because I live in the UK part of Ireland, but I got my license last summer, and it took me, like, 10 or 11 years of living here before I even attempted it because I was so scared of roundabouts get me. I'm so scared of them.
Yeah, it's for me, it's the turns. I can't even visualize in my head how what is it? A right turn is essentially like what our left turn would be. I just can't visualize it, and I can't imagine driving it. But you're
Yeah,
brave. You're brave for doing that.
I'm scared to drive when I come back to America to visit because I haven't done that yet. So I might just, like, not drive because 'cause I'm too afraid I'd go the wrong way and, like, go in the other lane with, like, oncoming traffic.
Mhm. That's
We'll
what I'm
see. If you don't
scared
hear
of.
from me again, I just didn't make it back from America.
You visited the US. What took you to Ireland from the US?
My husband, we were pen pals. It was, like, pre-Tinder, pre most normal things now. We were, like, pen pals on email, and then I was like, "Hmm, I'd like to go over there. I like Harry Potter." It has nothing to do with Ireland. And then, ended up going to college over here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. So you met, you exchanged emails, you moved across the pond. What has he done for you?
Stayed with me, I guess.
Dealt with a puppy.
Yeah.
Well, I am going I mean, I'm not actually kicking us off because we've been talking now for a while, but I am going to kick you off with a question that's been on my mind.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing?
I love that. I'm okay. I wasn't doing too great. I mean, I'm one of the people that was laid off. I'll start with that. You know, layoff crew. Feel like we're more than the employed at the moment, to be honest. So I wasn't doing too great about a month ago. You know, anxiety has been crazy, imposter syndrome, and all those things. But I'm getting better. I've been doing a lot more journaling, and I went to New Zealand for 2 weeks this past month. And that helped just to go to another place, you know, warmer weather, step away from normal life, stop interviewing for a little bit, and just breathe. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you got laid off. Um, it's it's an epidemic right now with the marketing folks. Just
Yeah.
it seems like it is affecting marketing at kind of a really high rate. And
Yep.
are you finding any support in your community of marketers?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, LinkedIn, there's been loads of people in there. I'll be honest, the whole LinkedIn community thing is a little smaller for people in Europe. The US ones seem to be a way bigger community. But then I'm part of Demand Metadata's Slack community. And in there, like, there's a women in marketing channel, and it's just total support. Like Christina, who was on here with you, she's in there. She was giving me advice, and Kaylee, who's all over LinkedIn. I'm sure you've seen Kaylee. People like that are just really supportive, giving each other advice about what they're seeing in their interviews and negotiations and advice and checking red flags, all these things, which has been really great.
What's been the most stressful part about your new job search?
The market's crazy. Like, anything that you expected in, like, pre-2023 interviews and things are the opposite. Like, somebody the other day was mentioning that she has 20 years experience in marketing with, like, loads of different industries, and somebody told her she needed more industry experience, so they turned her down, which makes no sense. Yeah, and then, like, there's so much more ghosting. I was turned down for a job because they wanted to give it to a director job at a B2B fintech company because they wanted to hire a junior B2C person just to see what would happen. So it's like the Wild West.
That is like the Wild West. How are you taking care of yourself with all of this craziness?
Yeah, I mean, anxiety obviously is very high, and then there's ebbs and flows of imposter syndrome amongst all that. But I've been doing a lot of pottery, like I told you earlier, and going outside a lot more. And then I have started weight training as well. So, lifting weights to kind of relieve any extra stress is really helpful because you kind of get some aggression out. Even if you don't feel like you have aggression in you, you can just, like, get it out in the form of lifting really heavy things.
I agree. There was a period of time where I did weight training, kind of like CrossFit, but not true CrossFit. And there was something that made me feel like such a badass. Even if I had like the teeniest, tiniest little weights, I was like, oh, I'm such a badass because I'm lifting things, dropping them on the floor, grunting. They're like
Yeah.
playing Creed really loud.
Yeah. Well, it's like because you're not progressing in your career at the moment, you can progress in other things. So it's like you feel like you're improving yourself in some kind of way. And honestly, for health, I need to improve that anyways. So that's been really good. And then you get the endorphins and you get to, get out and chat with other people and stuff too, because I'm still mostly in my house because of just Belfast.
Yeah. For pottery, have you been like the whole wheel setup, throwing pottery, making bowls? What are you doing?
I tried it,
Mhm.
but I've been doing, like, air dry clay at home. You can get, like, these really cool kits that started from some companies during COVID, and so you can get it all sent to your house, or you can, like, go to, like, groups nearby, and you just make everything on a table. Because I was inspired by the Great Pottery Throwdown or whatever it's called on, it's a UK show, I recommend it. But it's basically, like, just a big pottery off by people who are, like, amateur or, like, potters that aren't famous or have, like, a mainstream job for it, and they just go on and make crazy stuff. Like one competition they had to do was make a working toilet out of ceramics. Yeah, it is cool.
Oh
So
my
that kind of stuff,
goodness.
like doing pottery, trying to do. Haven't made a toilet, obviously, but focusing on that, it just clears your brain because when you're so anxious, you just have so many intrusive thoughts constantly. But when you're trying not to screw up making a bowl or something, that's all your focus. So it's really good for a calming day.
Yeah, and do you double down and listen to a true crime podcast while you're making a bowl?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, I listen to audiobooks when I'm trying to do like I have a watercolor workbook and I do have some air dry clay I got from it's like Play-Doh brand, but just
Oh,
anything tactile, I like to
yeah.
pair with listening to something that's kind of relaxing.
Mm, I love that.
So this what was the name of that show? The Great Pottery
Great
Throwdown?
Pottery Throwdown, I think is what it's called.
Oh, that's right up my alley. One of my favorite shows is the Bake Off, Great British Baking
Ah,
Show.
yep.
Yeah.
It's very similar, but pottery version, and the fun host that they have is, Siobhan, I think her name is McSwaney. She's the nun from Dairy Girls.
Oh, yeah, she was on an episode of Bake Off.
Yeah, she's the host of the Pottery Throwdown, and her Irish humor is hilarious because she just basically yells abuse at them, but in a funny way. She's like, "You're all horrible. Hurry up." But it's, like, funny in the way she does it. It's not I don't know. You just need to watch it. It's very good.
Yeah, what a skill to have to make someone laugh and kind of, like, laugh at how bad they are at something,
Yeah,
but keep it light and fun. Have you
yeah.
ever seen the show Nailed It on Netflix?
I feel like maybe is it a cooking show?
It is, it's amateur bakers who are really not very good bakers at all, and they were given the most complicated cakes and cupcakes to replicate in a very short period of time.
Yes. Yes, I love those.
It's so
They
fun.
really are bad, though.
They're so bad, but what I think I like about it is that it's, it's people doing it just for the hell of it, and they're just having fun, and
Yeah.
there's no expectation that they're gonna be great. Like, no one's crying, which is a big problem on a lot of, at least American cooking
Oh,
shows. People try things, they cry, they mess up, you know? But it's just like, "Okay, I'll try it. I'll try to make that caterpillar cake. I don't care."
yeah. Yeah. I always love when they really don't care and they just produce something they know is bad because they just can't be bothered.
Yeah, they're like, "Ta-da, you're welcome."
Yeah. Yeah, I made this for you, like, what effort did you put in for me?
Exactly. And then I think the judges do a really good job of what you said Siobhan does. It's like, "That was really terrible, but also let's have fun and have a laugh about it."
Yeah. Well, Siobhan does it, though, because, like, they're good. It's, like,
Oh.
talented people competing against other talented people. Some are obviously the least talented, so they do mess up a bit and get booted off, but everybody just has fun with it, but then she just really takes the piss out of them all and is, like,
Mm.
just mocking them and things, and then she's like, "I could do better than you," and obviously she can't. She doesn't know pottery, so it's so funny.
You gotta keep them humble, though.
Exactly. Irish way.
Absolutely. Mhm. Could you tell me a little bit about, so you expressed that you were having stress from layoffs, which makes a lot of sense. Um,
Mhm.
but can you tell me a little bit about your mental health journey and how that has affected your career up to this point, or how you're gonna handle mental health for yourself going forward as you try to find a new job?
Yeah, I mean, the journey's been a journey.
Mhm.
I've always been easily stressed, but one of those people that dealt with it really well, that, like, seems strong or, like, doesn't show that I'm stressed. Even right now, like, I'm anxious and I usually wear turtles on video, but I decided not to because this whole thing's about mental health, and so being
Mm.
nervous, I break out in, like, this beautiful red thing.
Mm.
It's really lovely. Um, but, I've had that forever, and throughout my career, it's kinda like the more that I learn or the more expertise that I get, the more imposter syndrome I get, the more anxiety I get, and the more intrusive thoughts that kinda combine the 2 constantly, which is so bizarre. And so in the last few years, like, even right before COVID and things, I started just getting a lot more anxious, and it just I don't know if it's almost, being in my 30s and all that, but it just kind of is a constant now, so I'm learning to deal with that, which has been a journey of its own. Recently started taking medicine, I've tried therapy, those sorts of things, but one thing that I have kinda learned over the last year is journaling actually really helps a lot, so writing things down. I know Christina mentioned that she talks out loud to herself. I tried that, but I just find I laugh at myself if I do it. So writing actually helps me a lot and focusing on, pros and cons list or, um, a lot of the times if the journaling doesn't help, then I have, like, friends or different support groups where I'll be like, "Is this actually just completely irrational?" Or even my husband, like, he knows he can be completely honest with me, and it's not, like, trying to make me feel better, even though he is nice about it. And I'm like, am I crazy right now? He's like, yes, that is, that actually doesn't make sense. Like, that is just your brain attacking you. And I was like, cool.
Yeah, it's so easy to unless you externalize, you like step outside of yourself in some way, which it sounds like you're getting better at. It's so easy to
Mhm.
just believe these lies that we tell ourselves. And I don't know why. Like I don't know why. I still have not figured out why myself like why am I harshest critic and then I believe myself because I'm often wrong.
Yeah.
So why do I trust myself to be right about this?
Yeah. I've also, like, I still struggle with it, but I've kind of trained my brain in work mode at least where, like, you're like, "Oh, somebody's gonna find out that I don't know what I'm doing in this." But nobody's ever told you that you're doing it bad or that it's wrong or anything. So now I've kind of told myself, unless somebody tells me this is wrong or not what they wanted or not the direction, I can trust myself and just continue with it and ask for feedback, but, like, not have these, like, fake thoughts in my head of they all secretly hate this and, all those kind of things that creep in when honestly people probably aren't even thinking about me. It's that kind of thing. It's so bizarre that your brain does it.
Two of the biggest realizations that have helped me, and I think that they came with turning 30. It's like you turn 30 and then you have clarity in a couple of things. And for me,
Yeah.
it was no one's thinking about you. They don't give a shit about you. And two was no one else knows what the hell they're doing. They actually don't. We're all just guessing. Yeah.
Yeah. And also because, in the last few years, mental health is becoming less and less taboo, you also learn everybody else has it too. So you can bond over the fact that we're all shitting ourselves and, like, freaking out that we're all fake or whatever, when really we're not. We just our brains are just, trying to attack us when really we're doing totally fine and we should be comfortable and confident in the fact that we're doing okay. It's like the more you do okay, the more your brain thinks that, something's gonna go wrong, so you need to worry about everything.
Yeah. Like it's a trap.
Mhm.
There was kind of that realization because of COVID forcing us to be in our houses and not see people. More and more people did start to understand. I think that mental health is something that needs to be taken care of and talked about.
Yeah.
And then for me, that felt like I could talk more about my mental illness because sometimes I conflate the two mental health and mental illness.
Mhm.
Sis, I have two diagnosed. And it always felt like it was safer to talk at least a little bit about mental health, like, oh, I meditate, stuff like that, but not to talk about medication.
Mhm.
Maybe not necessarily to talk about talk therapy, especially if it's like a consistent thing that you feel that you need to go to. Have you felt the same way that it's more open that you can talk about medication and therapy without judgment?
Yes and no. Therapy, yeah. I feel like not everybody has a therapist or it's fun to kind of figure out what kind of therapy have you tried. Like, I feel like that's becoming like a new trend, which could be both good and bad. Medicine, though, I feel like is very different, especially I've heard very different things about medicine in the US versus over here. Like in the US, there's stereotype or rumor, or whatever you want to call it, where, everybody's medicated too easily for everything, not just mental health, but in general. But then over here, everybody's kind of anti medicine because it's like, oh, well, Americans are medicated for everything. We don't really need to take meds for everything. But like I said, I have actually only last month decided to go on anxiety meds just to try them. I'm still figuring out if they're working for me or not. But for me, it was the right move. And it's kind of like everything else. Do what's best for you, is my opinion. And, if you want to tell other people or suggest it to other people, great. They might not listen, but, also don't force either therapy or something on other people. The therapy thing, I've had bizarre therapists. Like, nobody tells you, they're all like, oh, you should try therapy. And that's great. Nobody tells you there's like a million types of therapy. And if you're trying to figure out which one to start with and why, and then like over here, like you can get recommended by the NHS, which I guess is the same in America. I don't know. I'm like the most useless American. I haven't lived there most of my adulthood, so I don't know how things work. But over here, I've tried talk therapy, which my friend in the US does it, and her therapist actually talked to her. Mine was literally this lady. And she was like, okay, yeah, so I'll talk to you this first session to learn your story, learn about why you want to come here. But then I won't talk the other sessions. And I thought that was normal. I swear to God, I would literally show up. I tried it for 3 months because like, I'm going to give this my all. Every week for 3 months, I'd go to this lady's house. A lot of places are run in houses here, by the way. It wasn't just like this random lady pretending. And I'd go to her house and she'd be like, she'd just stare at me and expect me to start talking. And then I would kind of try and ask questions because that made me so nervous. I was like, I feel like I'm under pressure. Like, what do you want me to talk about? She's like, just whatever comes to mind. This is for you. You'll just say things and it'll help you come to terms with whatever. And I'm like, well, I could do that at home. I could literally talk to a wall and come to terms with things out loud rather than her. So that wasn't for me. I don't know if it's
Mm-mm.
for many people, but it was very bizarre. So I've kind of put the therapy on hold for a little bit.
I don't like the sound of that at all. Like, um, eh, uncomfortable silence. First of all, like that is the
Yeah.
definition of uncomfortable silence, not comfortable silence. I don't see how that could help. And then you're right. It's like, why? I don't know. Do you have to pay? Like, why would I pay if I could just, or why would I take the train if I could just stare at a brick wall and get the
Yeah.
same response?
Yeah, I was having to pay because it wasn't covered by the NHS, and I was like, "Well, it's therapy, it's obviously important, I'm gonna do it." Yeah, no, not that ever again.
No, but you
But if
are
anybody's
right.
listening and you do that and it works for you, I'm not shaming you, I'm not, like, judging, but for me, that was a really weird experience.
Yeah, I do apologize if that is something that you really enjoy.
Yeah,
For me, it's, potentially like a worst nightmare to just have to talk about my feelings without any sort of validation or response
yeah,
would be very hard.
yeah,
But yeah, potentially it works for some people, and I think that you're right that if you've never done therapy before, it's almost a shock how many kinds of therapy there are. So I've only really
mhm,
done one type. And when I did that one type, I didn't know that there were other types. So I did cognitive
yeah,
behavioral therapy. Like you have
mhm,
negative thoughts, and it's figuring out how you can acknowledge that those are negative thoughts and then turn around and make them positive. Essentially, like it's oversimplified. But
yeah,
I was talking to someone the other day about EMDR. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's like
yeah.
something with your eye movements and helping to retrain your brain to not react to stressful situations in the same way. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, like there's so many kinds, and I'm sorry that you had that bad experience with
Yeah,
the brick wall lady.
yeah, it's fine, but I was like, "I'll take a break from this for a little while," so that's why I've tried all the hobbies, the journaling, medication, all those things.
Tell me about your journaling. Is there a specific approach that you take? Is it like a gratitude journal, or do you just kind of whatever comes to mind, you sit down and write it out?
Yeah, pretty much whatever comes to mind. Sometimes I'll add because it's just a blank journal, but at the end, sometimes I will say, like, a prompt that I'll Google different prompts or something, and so it's like, 5 things I'm grateful for, or what do I hope to, have in my life in the next few months, or things like that that are more positive. But really just sitting down and just a brain dump of literally for 10 minutes, whatever comes to mind, just letting it go on paper. Sometimes I'll write things and not even really think about them much before they're on the paper, which is fascinating. But then it really does help like get the stresses kind of out of my brain and put them somewhere else for a little bit.
Do you do it at the beginning of the day?
Yeah, I've tried it both the beginning and the end of the day, and the morning is a lot better because it kinda sets me up to, like, okay, any of this, like, negative energy or negative feelings that I'm having, I can, start fresh a little bit. Obviously, it doesn't always work because I am an anxious person, but at least some of the things kind of stay to the side, and I can just progress throughout the day on whatever's new, which is nice.
That does sound really nice. I have this idea of journals or diaries, like, "Dear diary, today I feel bad," and talking about, like, every single experience that you've had that day. Um, and I am endlessly fascinated by the idea of journaling, but every time I've tried, I've not been able to do it. I have like 4 journals that maybe have 3 entries in them each, and it's been
Yep.
hard to keep consistent. So what is keeping you consistent?
I'm not always consistent, I'll be honest. There are, like, sometimes I'll go a month and forget or just not do it. But when I am consistent, it's literally just because I know it's helping and I have a routine, but my problem is I do really easily get out of just a whole day routine. So then if I don't have time in the morning and then I skip it, then I'm not gonna do it at all that day, that whole thing. But what's helped is setting a routine. Also, reading before bed has actually helped me feel more clear-headed in the morning to process those feelings and stuff in a journal. So if I have that, um, and just kind of I look forward to it, so that helps. But I was the same. I had, like, drawers full of really pretty notebooks that were just empty. I still have a lot that are empty, and I was like, "Oh, I'm totally gonna journal." One time, I even bought, like, stickers for it because that's how people would, like, design their notebooks with stickers and things and prompts. Then I had, like, a gratitude journal where it had the prompts in it, and I was like, "No, I just really need to have a blank page, do whatever works for me, figure it out." And that was a good place to start.
It's great that you found kind of your system. I know that for me, one of the biggest blockers that I have is that I feel like if I put it on a page, like ink to paper, it has to be interesting. But it's just for me,
Wow.
like no one's ever going to see it. So like it has to be interesting or important or insightful. Yeah, right. Like it doesn't. That's kind of goes against the purpose of the kind of journaling that it sounds like you're doing. Not that it's not insightful and interesting and important, but
Oh, it's probably not.
yeah, you're letting all your feelings out.
Yeah. I was kinda similar though. The reason I didn't like the, like, pre-created, like, gratitude journals or whatever you wanna call them is I felt like there was pressure I had to answer those questions, and maybe I didn't feel like that that day, or they weren't bothering me, or it didn't help with whatever I felt like I needed to kind of process in my mind. So just having a blank page, doing what I want, and just telling myself I don't have to read it again. It's just gonna literally sit in the notebook, probably get thrown out at the end. That helps. So I literally just think of it as like a brain dump notebook.
Yep. Yeah, I like to think that or I like the idea that you could just like throw it away or burn it or do anything with it cuz I never want to read my thoughts again. Like there's nothing
No.
about keeping a diary where I'm like, "Oh, I can't wait in 20 years to see what I thought." Not that's not for me because
Nope.
this brain is not to be excavated. Like we're just we just live in the moment here.
I've heard of people where they'll like I guess it's just in a notebook, but they'll write down like journal and however they want or write letters to themselves or others they're having issues with and never give it to them and then light them on fire and like obviously let them burn. And then that's their way of like it like mentally unblocks whatever it is they're trying to process. That sounds really cool. I'd probably end up lighting my house on fire by accident or something, but that could be something as well if you didn't want to read it and you didn't want it to exist, just burn it.
Yeah. I think you've inspired me to try journaling, but I'm not going to buy a new journal. Like that is my challenge to myself to just use the one I already have.
Yeah, that's your homework. Use a pretty one you already have.
Yeah. So, can you tell me a little bit about how you're approaching finding your next job, knowing that you struggle with your mental health, you want to make sure it's the right fit for you, right? But it's kind of a jungle out there, as you said. So, what strategies are you taking to make sure that you're being selective and that you're prioritizing your health and your mental health?
That's a really good question. I am being very, very, very I'm trying to be very, focused on any red flags or gut feelings. Sometimes a gut feeling in an interview with an employer is enough to say, "This isn't for me," and I've ignored those in the past. So I'm trying to really be good about that, and trying to, depending on the company's interview process, if it doesn't include a lot of people within the company, asking to meet other people, just so that I can get a feel for the culture, because meeting 1 or 2 doesn't represent all the people you're gonna work with or, how the company is. And then apart from that, just finding things that I find exciting. Like, I mean, even though I was just laid off from a startup, I'm a startup person, so I'm still looking for startups. That's not going to change. But being more clear on the stage of the startup, what they currently have, what they don't, and then how that would impact it, like the hours that I would have to work. Because obviously, startup hours are going to be crazy, but some are crazier than others. Um, and just going about that, it's not so much like, "Oh, I'm gonna find my dream job or something." I don't think my dream job exists, but, finding really cool people to work with, a product that actually is a solid product and people really fucking need it, that's really great to market. And then, yeah, just checking my gut, checking red flags, and making sure that I'm not going into something that has a toxic culture or, horrible people or all the horror stories you hear of all these other places.
I think going with your gut is so important, and with time you learn that that's true because
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, "Oh, I'm just being paranoid or I'm overthinking." Especially if you're an anxious person, it's very easy to talk yourself out of trusting your gut. In my experience, it's been very easy to talk myself out of that. And then with the clarity of time, my gut was right the whole time.
Yeah. No, 100%. Because like any job, you're gonna be in it for a while. You don't wanna ignore your personal feelings going into somewhere and then immediately hate it because 'cause you're not gonna be motivated, and then your mental health's just gonna get even worse because you're constantly struggling with, "Why did I choose this? Why am I doing this?" Like, all these things, and you feel more trapped.
Yeah. What are some of your red flags that you think are maybe should be universal red flags?
It's a good question. I mean, some easy ones are like just I mean, I think Christina said this as well, but how they treat you in the interviews, that's a big one. But then the more people you meet in a company, how they describe leadership or if they joke about, oh, because I mean, startups, yes, you wear many hats, but if they constantly mention, oh, you're really going to have to wear many hats here, or I hope you don't expect this kind of thing here, like these resources or whatever. If that wasn't explicitly described positively for, this is how the company is, this is where we're at, and it's just a constant like joke, kind of like when you're having a kid. I don't have kids, but when people have kids, like, you better get sleep while you can, those kind of things. If that comes up a lot, then that company probably has a really bad culture. Um, I'm trying to think. The other one is just if they keep dragging all the interviews out and you have so many, like 20 interviews for one job, and then at the same time, they never explain the company to you, that's a red flag that they just constantly want from you. They want more information, they want more of your time, but it's not like a trade. That shows that when you join them, it's probably going to be a nightmare.
Yeah. I sometimes think about interviewing like dating. Um and then if they keep like asking you out, like right, but you're not getting
Yeah.
anything from it or you're not getting anything from it. The conversation's bad, like they're not nice to you and they don't text you. Why would I keep
Mhm.
going?
Exactly.
Yeah. Are you are you running into situations where they're asking for free work from you when you go through
Yeah.
interviews?
Yes, presentations is basically a full-time job, and presentations have always been there, like, that's not anything new, and, I've as somebody that hired people in most past jobs, I've asked for presentations, but I've always asked for them to be pretty short, or they've traditionally been, like, a very short 30, 60, 90-day plan or one aspect of, like, a campaign or something like that. Now they're like, "Here's a full brief. We want a whole strategy. We want a strategy within a strategy for this one specific channel or this one specific thing. What tools would you use? Who would you hire? Like, how much budget would you need? How would you go about, like, setting these things up? What's the process you would have? What kind of messaging would you do?" Like, literally every detail. And they're like, "But just keep it high level." It's like, "Okay."
Don't get too in the weeds.
Yeah, it's just crazy, and I understand for some startups, they wanna make sure they're hiring the right person as the first marketer, fine, I get that. But some companies that are a bit bigger and they're hiring like that, and then they don't hire certain people, it kinda makes you think, are they just, taking ideas, getting free work out of people that are already really struggling with mental health and, just life in general because they don't have jobs and they might not be fortunate to be able to afford to be off, and they're just playing around with it.
Yeah, getting free ideas and free work out of people. I think it's
Mhm.
something definitely to be cautious of because
Yeah.
it's You want to believe the best in this process and show up with your best, but that also makes you're, like, at your most vulnerable as well to
Yeah.
be taken advantage of.
Yeah, a tip that I have kind of formed, maybe this is a mainstream thing and it's not a tip, everybody does it, I don't know, but I'll do the presentations in Google Slides, and I'll send them the shared link, and then if I don't get the job, then I, take their access away, which they might have downloaded it by then, but at least it's some kind of, blocker from them to stealing people's ideas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as much as you can protect yourself as possible, don't send something that they can download,
Yeah,
right away, like, no PDFs or anything.
exactly.
If you could give advice to someone about mental health and marketing right now, what would it be?
I think the main thing is be valid in your own feelings, like, your feelings are valid, just sit with them for a bit and just then write it out. I think that's the biggest thing is feel them, really think about them, embrace it for, maximum a day. Don't do it for like a week or a month. And then just write it out and try and move through it and figure out what positives you can actually get out at the end of it. And then also be a bit, depending on your situation, like we said in this, a lot of people have these issues or, also feel anxiety and imposter syndrome, and everybody feels stress. So, anybody you feel comfortable with talking about it, do.
Yeah, whether it's at work or outside of work, if you can find
Mhm.
that person who just kinda lets you vent. I'm always looking for someone who will let me say or who will say, "That sucks." They'll let me say whatever I need to say, and then they'll say, "That sucks," and not try to fix it for me. What about you?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. My husband used to try and fix it, and now he's kind of he's amazing, but he's kind of like, "Do you want a solution, or do you want me to just, you know, be here?" And I was like, "Can you just be here?" So he doesn't automatically offer a solution anymore, which a lot of men do, which is great. It's how they're programmed. But that's also where journaling's good because the journal can't give you a solution unless you write one and you try and figure it out yourself. But writing things down, it's all you. It's how you want to process it, and then you can go to people when you know what kind of reaction they do have.
Mhm. Do you think that journaling is helping you get through your job search right now?
Definitely, yeah. Like it helps you kind of process any gut reactions you are having of like, is this actually a gut feeling that's bad or good? But it also just lets you kind of process even deeper. Is this role for you? Is a company for you? What do you like? You know, is this the right move kind of thing?
Mhm. You're getting more in touch with your actual feelings about it because there probably is a little bit of a honeymoon or, like, that initial crush, like, it's like, of the relationship where you're like, "Oh, that company is so cute. I hope that it likes me too." But then when
Yeah.
you start to think deeply about it, you're like, "Actually, this is a red flag," or, "I don't like the way that they
Mhm.
handled this." But it's hard to drill down into that when you're so much you want a job, right? Like, you just want a job
Exactly.
first.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy or it's not easy. It's harder to like not just jump at a job sometimes.
Yes, being more mindful, like, that's something I'm trying to do with my career, and it does feel very hard because I mean, anything after 2008, I just felt like, "Oh, I'm lucky to have a job. I'm
Mhm.
so blessed to have this job. Other people would be excited to have this job, or I need the health insurance." There's like all of these things running through your brain that keep you from kind of going into a job search clear headed.
Mhm. Exactly, because you kinda panic at the beginning and then you're like, because 'cause we're trying to buy a house and then other people have different things, so it's like, "Oh, no, now we can't buy a house, we have to rent for another year," but then the rental market's crazy and we might get kicked out of your house at some point, but it's fine, I'll take my time and find a job, so it kinda goes between, I wanna make the right move, at the same time, I really need a job right now, so it's kinda this weird dance you're doing to try and figure out what your life is.
And what a metaphor for marketing as well, where it's like long-term thinking versus short-term thinking. I'm gonna do
Yeah,
this paid campaign or I'm gonna focus on organic. Just to bring it back to
exactly.
marketing a little bit, because this I like to say that this is a show with marketers, but it's not really about marketing. It's more
Yeah.
about the people behind marketing, but, we'll touch on marketing every once in a while.
Yeah, I feel like I just haven't talked about marketing a lot in this.
That's kind of my goal, if I'm being totally honest, where I was
Yeah,
jumping on calls with other marketers just to chat, and, we would ask, like, "How are you?" And I'd be like, "I am struggling," and we would just have the same kind of stresses, and then I realized why like, we kinda need an outlet for stuff like this. It doesn't always have to be about what campaigns you ran, what kinda
yeah,
copy works best, like, we're also humans, and we also need
yeah,
to talk about our feelings.
yeah. I mean, I've felt it really refreshing in this podcast not hearing or talking about what channel's dead right now,
Mhm.
or, if you don't do this, your marketing career is gonna fail. If you do this, you're gonna be like an all-star in 2 years, all those things.
That is one thing about marketing that I don't really enjoy is it does seem like there's black and white thinking from especially creators, not calling anyone specifically out, but like, "Do this and it will solve all your problems. Don't do this, it'll solve all your problems." But then when you're in the day-to-day of marketing, the answer that you'll get most to your questions is, "It depends." It always depends.
Do you find LinkedIn, like, overwhelming sometimes just scrolling through your feed, seeing all those posts, and then they start to contradict each other, but you're doing something different as well, and you're like, "Oh, no." I think for me, that goes back into mental health.
Yeah, actually, I have found myself in full transparency. I'm taking a full mental health week next week because I've just found myself being like very angry all the time. My job is to be on LinkedIn quite a bit because I do organic social on LinkedIn. And I would read through people's posts and I'd just like be grumbling, like, this isn't how you do that. And this is not what you said a year ago, or everyone's like doing cold plunges, and I was just getting so angry at, like, how people do talk in the black and white terms as if something's gonna solve all your problems. So yeah, it being inundated with all of these messages about what works, what doesn't, um,
Yeah.
has really affected my mental health, especially lately.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know why, I've been on LinkedIn for years, but in the last I'd say since Christmas, it's just, like, I'll go through phases where I can't check it because I know if I do, I'll just get extra anxious or, just automatically think I don't know anything I've ever known.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that too where people reveal, like, they did an experiment and then Um, it solved all their problems, and I think another problem too is, like, people will tag you in or they'll share things and they'll do it in a kind way, but then
Mhm.
it's like, sometimes you feel like you have to defend why you don't do these things that someone else has done that's worked for them because, like like I said, it depends, it all depends, and so much of marketing good marketing, I believe, comes from being able to tap into that gut feeling, which is why I think it's so interesting that you like to do journaling to kind of process your own gut feelings because that can only make you a stronger marketer, right?
I hope so. I do the same with marketing. But I agree, everything depends, like, I was asked in an interview today, and they were like, "What playbook would you bring in?" And I was like, "Well, there's not a playbook. I'm not gonna come from one company and just say, 'Here's everything I did, let's do it.'" It's like, not just a gut feeling, it's also a data feeling, like, what works here, what doesn't, what makes sense, like, just because you see it on LinkedIn or this person in your board said it, doesn't mean that it's gonna work here and that you should do it, like, that's the thing that bothers me is they do make it seem like everything that these creators are doing can be applied, but at the same time and I don't think people talk about this about enough, but the creators also have, like, huge budgets, big brand names, like, connecting with other big brand names and huge budgets, and then you're a marketer in a startup with, like, I don't know, 50 grand for a year. You can't get the same tools or have the same team or have the same whatever, but if you're comparing yourself, then you're gonna be like, "Well, I'm just a shit marketer. I'm just, completely useless. They're gonna find out I'm horrible. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this." And then you just kinda spiral. So it's healthy to learn things and get other people's opinions, but it's really unhealthy to be on LinkedIn for a long time.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn, sometimes we forget that LinkedIn at its face is social media. And if you know anything about social media, it's that people are only showing pretty much their best selves. So they're only showing
Mhm,
you the thing that worked for them. If they show you something that didn't work, it's probably not something that totally crashed and burned, you know? So
mhm.
that that is a perspective that I think I lose sight of. And maybe that's why the past few weeks I've just been so mad like just truly anger scrolling.
I totally get it though. Like, I went through that last year, just being really angry, not just at LinkedIn, but a lot of social channels, like everything. It was like, I'm just so tired of people acting like everything's great, everything's working for them, everything's this and that, and you just wanna see real things. And obviously even reality TV isn't real, so you can't even turn to that anymore, like, so I totally get it. It's a weird time and a weird place to be when you do have, anxiety and those kinds of things, and you're trying to filter them while also absorbing all the information that we get these days.
Yeah, too much information. There's
Yeah.
My brain has too much information in it, I feel like all the time, which for someone with generalized anxiety, like you already are processing at like way higher rate. Just everything is going through my brain all the time, and then
Yep.
have access to so much more information. Um,
Mhm.
yep, news travels so fast. It's just too much.
I'll be honest, I don't check the news. Like, I can't. Like, it's too much, especially, like, between all the different countries that I'm, like, connected to, or just the world.
Mhm.
Can't add that on to it, but that's why I highly recommend journaling. It can't tell you anything. It can't put anything in your brain. It'll help you take things out.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take, a page out of your journal and try
Oh,
journaling. I'm gonna try
love it.
journaling myself, see if it helps me get in touch with my emotions.
Do it. And I don't recommend sitting and talking to a woman who doesn't talk to you.
No, absolutely not. That's so interesting. I'm
Yeah,
gonna be thinking about that probably for, like, a couple of months. I'll just come back to that story and be like, what were they thinking?"
yeah. It's called talk therapy, which I found really ironic.
Listen therapy.
Yeah, it's like talk at me therapy, like, where I talk at them.
Yeah, I think traditionally my thought about therapy is that you talk and then people give you tools to process your
Yeah,
emotions and like
yeah.
homework. And it's like it's actually an interaction. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I feel bad
That's what I
that
expected. But
yeah.
then I was like, maybe I got that from TV. Maybe that's like the TV therapy and I'm just completely wrong, but no, I'm pretty sure I wasn't wrong.
I don't think you're wrong, and I think that you were right to stop going. But if you're interested in exploring true talk therapy, maybe you have to try a couple more people to see if there's like a good
Yeah.
one for you.
Yeah, I think I will at some point. I'll just let this one kinda filter out of my system first.
It's hard that when your therapist doesn't click, especially if it's like your first time ever going, it's
Mhm.
hard to forget that and to feel like it's safe. It's safe to go back and try someone new.
Yeah. Yeah, like, when you dread going, I think that's
Hmm.
another gut sign, don't go.
Mm-mm, absolutely
Yeah.
not. Typically, I would ask, a guest for advice to another marketer, but I feel like your advice would be start journaling. Is that correct?
Yeah, start journaling, and I guess the advice, even though we've talked about it a bit, is also don't give up on startups just because the market's crazy. Like, startups are still some of the best experience you can have. So on the marketing side, even if you're anxious, even if you have imposter syndrome or any other, mental health things, startups could actually be a really good place for that because you connect more, I think, with people in those than corporate. I mean, corporate people don't at me about this. Just my theory. I've worked in a few, but I feel like you can engage with people and find people with similar things in startups and also have way more impact, which gives you a lot more fulfillment. And I could talk about it all day, but don't give up on startups just because the market's nuts.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's also more of a mentality of flexibility and being able to try things, and failure is an option for a lot of
Yeah.
startups where you're just kind of testing it out because no one really knows right at the
Yeah.
beginning what works and what doesn't. So and then the bigger impact is huge for me. I love that feeling.
100%.
And to wrap us up, can you tell me a joke?
Yeah, I did write one down because me telling stories from memory is horrible. So, why did the scarecrow get a promotion?
I have no idea.
Because he was outstanding in his field.
Oh man, I made that joke the other day with a cow.
Oh, okay.
I live in Kentucky and I was like, that cow is outstanding in its field. So I'm mad
Ah,
at myself for not knowing that answer. That's a great one.
I love it. I think it's amazing. I love a pun and a dad joke. I won best dad at one of my last companies for the Christmas awards.
Really?
Yeah, because I tell so many dad jokes at work.
What a skill. Do you put that on your resume?
I should, but maybe that would go against me in this market.
Mm,
I don't
if
know.
it's the
I'll
true
just break it to
you.
them when they hire me.
Yeah. Okay, I am giving you a soapbox for the last 60 seconds. Is there anything that you want to promote, share, talk about in this final minute?
I feel like I'm on Hot Ones, like camera here, here, and here. Have you seen Hot
That's
Ones?
what I'm emulating. Like that, if there
Love it.
is a great interviewer, it is Sean Evans from Hot Ones. And
Oh,
if
yeah.
listeners have not watched Hot Ones, you must.
Yeah, Hot Ones, I guess, is another passion of mine. What am I promoting? Nothing right now, but if you want someone in the industry to talk about mental health, reach out. I'm pretty friendly, I think. And if you need advice on, knowing if a startup is good or not, I'm happy to kind of talk through those things, let you know if it's normal, if it's not normal. I don't know everything, but I've been in quite a few. I can tell you if that's an actual startup or if it's just a very crazy place. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Well, great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too.